The sky glowed orange as the sun dipped behind the horizon, and the last gas station disappeared in the rearview mirror. I glanced at my sister, Lina, who was humming softly to a song on the radio. Her auburn hair shimmered in the fading light, her face peaceful, unaware of the dread slowly building in my chest. "Almost there," I murmured, tightening my grip on the steering wheel. We were headed into the Kalana wilds, a dense, unmarked forest in the north, barely on any map, mostly untouched, the kind of place hikers whispered about. Lina found it on some obscure camping forum. "No one goes there anymore," she'd said, eyes sparkling with excitement. "It's perfect." Something about that bothered me. No one goes there anymore. Why? Still, it had been years since we'd had time away together. After Mom died, we both buried ourselves in different corners of our grief. This trip was supposed to reconnect us. Just us. No distractions. We turned onto a dirt road, the car jostling violently. Trees closed in around us like a tunnel. The sunlight vanished faster than it should have. After nearly an hour of bumping through the dark, we found a clearing, just big enough for the tent. No birds sang. No wind blew. The air felt wrong, unnaturally thick. "Creepy," I whispered. "Quiet," Lina corrected, smiling. "Exactly what we need." We set up the tent, started a fire, opened canned beans for dinner. The forest remained still, too still. The silence pressed against my ears like water underwater. But I smiled anyway. For her. We stayed up, sharing stories by the fire, laughing about our childhood, about how Lina used to make potions with dirt and grass. And I was her loyal assistant, collecting dragon bones from under the porch. "I missed this," she said softly. "Me too." Then we heard it, a whisper, barely audible. It didn't sound like wind. It wasn't leaves rustling, it was a voice. Female, echoing from the trees, words we couldn't quite make out. Lina froze. I grabbed her hand. "Probably just someone hiking nearby," I said, not even believing myself. "But it's past midnight." We stared into the trees. Nothing moved, no light, just darkness, so thick it felt alive. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept listening, straining my ears. There it was again, a whisper. Then, a laugh. Soft. Wrong. I didn't tell Lina I heard the laugh. I didn't want to scare her. Or maybe I didn't want to scare myself by saying it aloud. But I couldn't shake the sound. It was light, almost playful. But there was something sick beneath it, like a child mimicking joy, without ever knowing what joy felt like. Around 3 a.m., I finally drifted off. But my dreams were fractured. I saw trees bending in unnatural ways, roots slithering like snakes, eyes, hundreds of them, hanging in the branches like rotten fruit. When I woke, Lina was already up. She was boiling water over the fire pit for coffee. She looked off, pale. There was a small scratch across her cheek. "Did you?" I started to ask. She turned to me too quickly. "Sleep fine," she said. "Fast. Too fast." I didn't press. Instead, we packed a day bag and decided to explore deeper into the woods. I hoped daylight would chase away the unease that had crept into our bones the night before. As we walked, Lina told me stories she'd read online, legends about ancient spirits, witches, and ghost towns swallowed whole by the trees. Most were ridiculous, but her voice took on a strange tone when she said, "They say the Kalana wilds used to be a place where the veil between this world and the next was thin." I laughed, nervously. "What does that even mean?" She shrugged. "Means maybe the dead talk here? Maybe they listen. You're spending way too much time on those forums." We kept walking. Then, we found it. A massive, twisted. Its bark blackened like it had been burned long ago, yet it was wet, sticky with sap that shimmered faintly. It glowed, and carved deep into its trunk were markings, spirals, runes, symbols. Fresh, not faded, not old. Fresh. Lina stepped closer. She reached out, touched the bark with her fingers, and whispered, "I saw this in a dream." I blinked. "What?" She turned, smiling faintly. "Never mind. Let's keep going." We hiked for hours, but every turn started to look the same. Every fallen log, every twisted branch, eerily familiar. It was as if the forest was folding in on itself. Eventually, we gave up and tried to head back. But the path was gone. We hadn't marked our way, stupidly confident we'd remember. No, Lina muttered, spinning in circles. "It was this way, I swear." We were lost, deep in Kalana, miles from help, and then, from somewhere behind us, we heard it again, the whisper. This time there were two voices. One was the same soft female whisper from last night. The other was deeper, slower, as if it came from beneath the ground, and both were calling our names. We ran. Branches tore at our arms and faces as we stumbled blindly through the underbrush, fleeing from something we couldn't see, only hear. Those voices, weaving through the trees like smoke, our names drawn out like a song sung backward. At last, we broke into another small clearing. But this one was different, unnatural, perfectly circular, as if the earth had been scooped out with precision. No grass grew here. The soil was black, cold. "What the hell is this?" I whispered, my voice shaking. Lina didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on something in the center, a stone pillar, about waist high, smooth, too smooth to be something natural. Etched on its flat top was a symbol, a circle, intersected by jagged lines, curved like ribs. I didn't recognize it, but somehow I knew it, like it had been buried deep inside me. Lina reached out, almost hypnotized. "Don't touch it!" I grabbed her wrist. She blinked, looked at me like she'd just woken from a dream. "What? Sorry, I thought I heard Mom's voice." I felt it then, a cold breath on the back of my neck. I turned sharply. No one was there, just trees, silent, watching. "I think we're in trouble." Lina nodded slowly, her mouth tight. "We need to get back to camp before it gets dark." But the sun was already sliding behind the branches. Shadows stretched like claws across the forest floor. We moved fast, tried to retrace our steps. But the forest had changed. I swear the trees had moved. Roots tangled where none had been before. Paths were blocked by walls of thick foliage. The woods were shifting. At one point, Lina screamed and pointed upward. I looked and froze. A figure was standing high in the trees. Not on a branch, in the branches. Its limbs stretched too far, weaved through the branches like vines. And its face was wrong, blurry, smeared like oil across canvas. As if it refused to take a shape our minds could understand. It didn't move. It only stared. Or maybe it didn't have eyes. We ran again, fell, scraped our knees, tore open our palms, until at last we saw the tent in the distance, pitched in our original clearing. But the fire was burning again. We hadn't lit it, and sitting beside it with her back to us was a woman, long black hair, wearing our mother's sweater. We stopped at the edge of the clearing, breathing hard, staring. Her back was still turned to us, but I knew that sweater. Brown wool, a small tear in the left shoulder. Mom wore it when she gardened, when she read by the window, when she held us close on stormy nights. But she had been buried in that sweater. Lina and I had chosen it, together. My mouth went dry. "Lina?" But she was already walking forward, slow, like drawn by a string. "It's her," she whispered. "No, Lina." "She's cold," Lina said. "She needs us." I grabbed her wrist, but her skin was burning. She yanked free and stepped into the clearing. "Mom?" she called out. The woman stirred. She stood. Her movements were too fluid, like water unraveling from cloth. Her head tilted to the side as if it was too heavy or too unfamiliar. She turned, and I saw her face. It was Mom's, but pale, stretched tight, eyes too wide and glassy, like someone frozen in death. Her mouth twisted into a grin that didn't match the sadness in her eyes. Her lips moved, but what came out was not her voice. It was a thick, gurgling whisper, words from no language I knew, a chant, a call. And the trees around us creaked, as if answering. Lina took a step closer. I screamed her name. That's when the woman opened her arms, and her shadow split in two. The ground beneath her feet cracked. Black tendrils slithered out, wrapping around her legs like roots reaching for light. Her face began to peel, not bleed. Peel, like bark from a tree. I grabbed Lina and yanked her back, just before one of the tendrils reached her. The woman let out a sound. A weeping moan played backward. We ran again, into the dark, into the trees that had turned against us. The firelight faded behind us, and with it, the figure who had worn our mother's face. Eventually, we collapsed near a fallen log. The moon above was too high, too bright, casting silver shadows that stretched too far. Lina was shaking. "It wasn't her," she whispered. I thought it was, but "It wants you to believe," I said. "That's how it gets close." She nodded, teeth chattering. "We're not alone out here, Sarah. Something else is in these woods." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because right then, just past the trees, I saw the same stone pillar from before. It had moved, and this time, there were footprints circling it. Small, bare, leading in and out from the trees in all directions. Like a dance or a ritual. The footprints were so small they could have belonged to a child. But they weren't scattered like a child's steps. They formed a perfect ring around the stone, tight, controlled, obsessive. Lina and I stared from behind a thicket, too afraid to speak. Then, one by one, more stones began to appear. Not appear like they were placed. Appear like they rose from the earth, slowly, silently, emerging from the dirt like they had always been there, just hidden. Within minutes, 5 stone pillars stood in a wide circle around the clearing, each etched with the same ribs and circle mark as the first. "This is a ritual site," I whispered. "Or a trap." Lina didn't reply. She was watching something in the trees, her eyes wide, unblinking. I followed her gaze. Figures moved between the trunks, slender, wrong, moving without sound. Their skin looked gray, porous, as if bark had grown into flesh. Their heads turned slowly, too slowly, like puppets pulled by old forgotten strings. They didn't speak. They just stood at the edge of the clearing, watching, waiting. Lina gripped my hands so tightly my fingers went numb. Then a sound, a single bell, far away, faint, as if rung underwater. The figures responded. Each one raised its arm and pointed toward the circle of stones. "Nope," I whispered. "We're leaving, now." But the moment we turned, the trees behind us closed. Branches twisted together like fingers clasped in prayer. The path we'd come from, gone, blocked by a wall of forest that hadn't existed seconds ago. Panic bloomed in my chest. "We're not supposed to leave," Lina said flatly. "What?" "They brought us here. For this." I turned to her. Her voice was different. Quiet, resigned. She was staring straight ahead, unmoving. "Lina?" I shook her. "Lina, look at me!" But her eyes were locked on the stones. One of the pillars began to hum. A low, vibrating sound, so deep it made my teeth hurt. The symbols on it pulsed with a dull red glow, like a heart beating through stone. Lina stepped forward. I tried to stop her, but something held me back. Not physically. No vines. No roots. Just pressure, like the air itself had thickened. Formed a wall between us. She entered the circle, and the figures in the trees began to chant. Low, inhuman, syllables that scraped across my bones. The air buzzed, the earth trembled, and from the stone at the center of the ring, something began to rise. Not a figure, not a person, a shape, a wound in the air. It unfolded like a black curtain pulled open in reverse, revealing nothing. A void, a mouth in reality. And Lina stood before it, motionless. I don't remember screaming, but my throat burned. I fought against the pressure in the air, clawing my way forward, inch by inch. My feet sank into the dirt, like the forest was trying to consume me whole. "Lina!" I shouted, reaching toward her. She turned her head slightly, just enough for me to see her face. Her eyes were wide open, but there was no recognition in them. She was crying, but her expression was vacant, trapped. The wound in the air, the mouth was pulsing now. Every throb sent waves of nausea through me. It made no sound, yet it devoured sound. The chanting faded. The wind died. Even the fire we had left behind no longer crackled in my memory. It was hunger incarnate, and Lina was being drawn toward it. "Don't!" I shouted. "Don't go in there!" But the pressure was too strong. The void was pulling her. Desperate, I searched the ground, found a sharp stone, and sliced my palm without hesitation. Blood ran down my wrist. "Lina!" I cried. "This isn't you. Mom wouldn't want this. We don't belong to this place." The void twitched. It reacted. The red glow in the stones dimmed. The figures in the trees hissed in unison, their mouths open in silent fury. And Lina blinked. She looked down at her feet, then at the gaping wound before her. Her hands trembled. "Sarah!" I surged forward, adrenaline giving me strength. The air parted. Just enough. I reached her, grabbed her, pulled her back. The void screamed. A terrible, soundless scream that shook the earth. The stones cracked. The sky flickered, like lightning, but from beneath us. The figures rushed forward, but as they did, the stone I had bled on shattered, and with it, the others began to collapse. The circle broke. The void twisted violently and snapped shut like a maw denied its prey. The ground surged beneath us like a heartbeat, then went still. Silence. Not the stillness from before, not that thick, suffocating quiet, but real silence. Natural. Waiting. Lina collapsed against me, sobbing. "I was inside it," she gasped. "I could see things." "What things?" She shook her head. "It showed me what it wanted. A version of Mom. Of you. It made promises. I didn't want to, but it was inside." We sat there in the ruined circle for what felt like hours. Eventually, the forest changed. The trees lightened. The air became breathable again. Somewhere far off, an owl hooted. Normal sounds. We rose on shaky legs and walked. This time, the path out was clear. Almost too clear. Like the forest was letting us go, or watching us leave. We didn't speak as we walked. Not much needed to be. Forest had changed behind us, but we had changed too. Lina gripped my hand, so tightly her knuckles turned white, and I welcomed the pain. It reminded me we were still real, still alive. The trail opened. We saw the dirt road and our car, untouched. It sat there like nothing had happened. The firewood we'd left behind, the trunk, the water bottles, the sleeping bags. Everything exactly where we left it. We threw it all in the back and drove. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. Lina didn't hum this time. We didn't speak, not until we hit the edge of cell signal and our phones exploded with missed calls and voicemails. I had 11 from Dad. Lina had 17. He'd already called the police. They were preparing a search party. It had only been 2 days. It had felt like a week. When we got home, we didn't tell anyone what really happened. Who would believe us? We said we got turned around in the woods. Lost track of time. Found our way back. Everyone nodded. Everyone was relieved. But it wasn't over, because something came back with us. It started small. That first night, I woke to scratching on my bedroom window. I live on the 3rd floor. Lina called me the next morning. She said her closet door wouldn't stay closed. Said it opened every night, and something stood inside. Watching, not moving. We tried to rationalize it. PTSD, stress, our imaginations. But then the dreams came. Not nightmares, not exactly. They were memories, but warped. We both started dreaming of the forest, but it wasn't in the forest. It was beneath it, a cavern that pulsed and breathed. The void still called to us. It wanted us back. And sometimes in the dreams, we were already walking toward it. The worst part, I started seeing Mom. In the mirror, she'd smile, that same twisted, too wide grin as the woman by the fire. Sometimes she'd whisper. And once, just once, I heard her say, "You left the door open, Sarah." Lina and I started sleeping in the same room again, like we were kids. We kept every light on, every door locked, salt in the corners. We researched everything, protection rituals, cleansing symbols. Nothing helped, because at night, we'd still hear it. A low hum, like the stones, and footsteps, soft, bare, pacing in slow, perfect circles just beyond the walls. We couldn't live like this. It had been weeks since we left Kalana, yet every day, the signs grew worse. Our home was no longer a sanctuary. Shadows moved on their own. Walls creaked in perfect rhythm. Voices whispered at the edge of hearing, low and wet like breath through soil. We kept waking up with dirt under our fingernails. Salt lines disturbed. Iron. Sage. Prayers. Silence. Nothing worked. The worst was Lina. One night I found her sleepwalking. She was barefoot, stepping in a slow circle around the living room. Her eyes were closed. Her lips moved. She was humming. Not a song I knew. No melody. No rhythm. Just a low, toneless chant. The same sound we heard in the woods. "Lina," I whispered. She didn't stop. I grabbed her shoulders, shook her. Her eyes snapped open, and for 1 second, they weren't hers. They were black, like pits. She screamed, and behind her, every light in the room burst. That was the moment I knew. We had to go back, to end it, to close the door we left open. Lina didn't argue. She knew, same as I did. Whatever we awakened in Kalana wasn't just from there. It had attached to us, and it would never stop. Not until it fed. We drove in silence. The forest looked different in daylight. Lush, quiet, a lie, but the trees still remembered us. It took less than an hour to find the circle again. Or maybe it found us. The stones had returned, broken, yes, but whole enough to pulse faintly beneath the earth. They weren't glowing, not yet. Lina stepped into the center, holding the object we had both dreamed of, without ever having seen it in real life. A ring, braided hair and root. We'd found it in her bag 3 nights ago. Neither of us had put it there. She held it out. A wind rose. The trees swayed. Birds vanished. The hum returned, quiet at first, then rising. It filled our skulls like pressure, like drowning in sound. I cut my palm again. Let the blood fall onto the center stone. The stones responded. They shook. The forest groaned. The wound in the air began to open again. But this time, we were ready. I took the root ring from Lina and cast it into the opening. The void screamed. Not like before. This was rage. This was refusal. A denial of finality. The ground shook. Trees leaned inward, bark peeled back in long, wet strips. But the stones began to crack, one by one, until the void twisted once more and collapsed in on itself, sucking its light and sound away. Gone. The wind died, the forest stilled. And the circle was empty. No figures, no stones, just trees. Lina fell to her knees. I held her. We didn't cry. There was no strength left for that. We walked back in silence. This time, the path stayed open. And when we got home, it was home again. No footsteps, no whispers, no more circles. But sometimes, just sometimes, when the house is quiet, I still hear her, our mother's voice, calling from the trees. But I don't answer anymore. I know better now. Some doors, once opened, never truly close.